All right. Well, I'm glad everybody, thankful for everybody that can make it out here. Uh, Doug and Raul are running a little bit behind, but that's all right. That's why we're all here to kind of cover each other up. And so today we're going to talk about um, kind of like an important one, which would be cumulative trauma. And I don't know, be quite honest, when a lot of the stuff that I deal with a lot of the folks that we come in contact with, myself, Doug, and Raul, and all the stuff, all the folks over here in After Action, very rarely do we come across somebody that is just dealing with like one incident. That's not to say that one incident can't kind of jump up and kind of punch you in the throat a little bit, but um, mainly or more common is we see folks experience stuff throughout their career that eventually rolls into what manifests as or may present itself after a single event. So people might get that confused that this one event's bothering me. And the interesting side note is that we may not know that the past experiences have kind of led us to this spot or led us to this position where one incident's kind of bothering us. So one of the things that I talk about, and when Raul and Doug jump on, we'll kind of back and forth on it because it's everybody has their own kind of experience. But with cumulative trauma, it's for first responders and veterans specifically. We have a really high threshold of the bullshit we can be exposed to. Um, I mean, as an early first responder, whatever discipline it is, whether fire, EMS, dispatch, or law enforcement or veteran, you're kind of aware. Your senses are all about you. You're working in overdrive. You're almost hypersensitive to everything, and so you're really more processing it. And there comes a point in time where uh, I remember it was years after I'd been working. I think it was in homicide at the time, and we always joke, and most cops will joke about this that uh, cops have that kind of disposition where they'll be standing over somebody that's either died or recently or for a long time, and you just find it, whatever it is, and the conditions are usually. And by the way, most of the time the people die, it's like in an apartment that the heat's been on for like 30 days. So it's funky. Gets pretty crazy in there, right? And it's the smells and this everything, all that together, and you'll hear discussion. I guarantee you, go to any police department, go to any agency, or go to any crime scene where somebody's working, and even our forensics folks, which those guys are just as macabre as the rest of us, but we'll be discussing what to eat. Now, earlier on, when I first started experiencing stuff like that, I'd have never even thought of that. I'd been like, well, there goes my appetite. So there's a shift that kind of goes on. So what it is, we kind of see all these horrible things, and we're exposed to just really stressful situations and just time and time again, and we start to become almost inoculated to them, or we gain a tolerance, I think, for it. The problem is because we have such a high threshold of what we can see and tolerate that when we do surpass that, everything comes down. It's just an avalanche of just emotions and all sorts of good stuff, right? So when we talk about stuff or when it's stuff kind of really gets to us and we do get help or we reach out to whoever, we talk to our friends, talk to a counselor, a clinician, whatever. Um, a lot of that conversation is what happened leading up to that. Like what I know whatever you're coming here to see me or to address or to do whatever is significant, but I'm curious why this is significant. And normally that's kind of that it's kind of an indicator that this is the last thing on a series of things that have eventually gotten to the point where you're not really managing it as well as you could be or you think you should be, which that in and of itself is a whole nother topic of what we think is really bothering us or when something bothers us we have this perception that like I can't believe this little incident is putting me over the top. Well, it's not the little incident, it's the thousands of little incidents that happen across. And I'm reminded of a conversation I had with uh he was a street officer, and he come in my office and he's like, say man, can I talk to you? I said, yeah, sure. I said, what's going on? He's like, he goes, listen, man, I mean, and this guy had been doing it for, I think at the time, 16, 17 years. So he'd been a street cop the whole time, which is, you know. That's a lot for anybody. Um, and he's like, this one guy said something to me like, "You're a piece of shit," or I pay your salary, something to that effect, something mundane that we hear 1,000 times. He goes, I don't. He's like, Chris, I don't know what happened, but I got so infuriated and so mad. Not, and he didn't do anything to the guy or anything like that, but he was reflecting on it. And when he was talking to me, he goes, "Why?" I've heard that a billion times. He called me a piece of shit. He called me all sorts of names. He said, I do this, I do that, and blah, blah. But for some reason, this one just got me. And I'm like, well, I said, how you just said, how many times do you think this has happened? And he's like, a million times. I said, there's only, it's like the death. And I think I told him, I said, it sounds like a death by 1,000 cuts, just like every day. Someone calling you stupid is not going to do anything, really. But what if somebody called you stupid for 15 years in a row, right? Every day, every time you went into work, or just you were just mean mugged, or just anybody just talking shit to you, or just disrespecting you for that long. You can't help but be jaded. And so a lot of times the response to that is no, and it's a normal response, but we don't think of it as normal because a billion times that's happened, we didn't have that response. So something must be wrong. And I think that's kind of how we look at it. So if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, it's and this topic goes like super broad, because it may not just be one thing. It could be that thing and then two other things that happen, and that so it's like we've got a queue of all these like shit scenarios that have just been piling up and piling up and piling up. And here's why I think it's so important, and we talk about this a lot. Why bringing families into the fold and just like, hey, this is what's going on, or kind of educating him or her on, hey, this is what your spouse experienced and stuff like that. Because what happens is most first responders, whether again, if you're in a firehouse or a medic bay or what, whatever, you'll you manage to keep it like you manage to kind of suppress the initial I want to just yell at somebody or just voice my complaint about it because we're professionals and we're trying to maintain that professional kind of posture. But when we go home, we have a sense of being in a safer spot, which leads into a lot of other issues as to why what we do at home or maybe arguments or conflicts that we have at home may not always be what's going on at home. It may be that's the one space that we feel comfortable in voicing our concern. And I say this a lot. I said, uh, cops or first responders and vets that are in crisis are more likely to lash out at the loved ones. The closer you are with someone, the easier it is for us to just kind of lash out at you, as opposed to a complete stranger. And I think there's a lot to it other than that, just also the relationship. But I think it boils down to that's a place or an environment when you're at home or when you're with your loved ones that the guard is dropped down and you have this understanding that maybe I can probably get a little bit more off my chest where I might get in trouble or somebody might complain on me if I say something at work or something like that. So we see a lot of that at the house, and which leads to a ton of other stuff because a lot of times we don't know we're doing it. The great video that forget where it came up from, but I think it was like a commercial for a thing, but it's called "It's Not About the Nail," where um, guy's talking to his wife who's got a nail sticking out of her forehead, and she's like, I have this thing going on with here, and just I got my head hurts right here, and he's like, yeah, you got a nail sticking out of your head. Well, I don't think it's that, but no, you got a nail out of your head. And so he's trying to fix the one issue that's kind of coming up. But it really is not about the nail. It's the idea, the concept of it is that there's something underlying. It's just wanting to be heard. So the issues that we have is like we'll go home and we'll start yelling or griping or just being in a shit mood and just, and I use this example a lot. If I say, tell my wife, hey, I'm going to do the dishes, um, and she starts doing the dishes, like 4 seconds after I say it, I get upset. Like, I just told you I was going to do the dishes. Has nothing to do with the dishes. It has everything to do with where my head's at, what I was doing, where she, and again, it's not one sided. It's two people or a family dynamic. So the kids may have had a rough day at school and coming home and maybe like, hey, clean your room. And they're like, fuck you, I don't want to clean my room. And you're like, all right, now you're being disrespectful, whatever it is. Or your wife or your spouse comes home or your partner comes home and they're like, uh, in a bad. So imagine people in bad moods kind of gathering into a safe place where they believe that they can kind of maybe voice their opinion, or they're less tempered when they're discussing, or they're lashing out for whatever reason. Like I can't talk about this because I saw something horrific at work, or I've been experiencing again just a really shitty work environment. And I'm not even talking about calls. I'm talking about just maybe administratively or relationship wise that are, or work relationships that are going on at work, or just the dynamic of working in proximity with people for such a long time that you'll come home and it just again we'll start voicing our concerns. And so imagine all that, but imagine you don't even realize why you're doing that. So you can have two people kind of conflicted, and it all kind of results from this lack of purge, like purging. And which is why I tell people all the time that I'm like, hey, have you ever thought about talking to a clinician or a counselor or something like that? And they're like, I got nothing really to kind of complain about. It's not so much about, I think you have a problem with an issue or one thing, but we need a vent. We need to, that cathartic ventilation, that just to be able to get it off our chest. So those little things don't really bother us or don't add up and then kind of overfill our bucket, or as Doug likes to refer to it a lot, they use the wheelbarrow um, concept where you're dumping all the stuff in the wheelbarrow and now you're focused on just trying to maintain that, where it's a lot easier to move around if you unload it once in a while. So that's the big thing. So take that in tandem with uh, a group of individuals that are in disciplines that um, they don't seek to empty that wheelbarrow, or they don't seek to purge that the buildup of all these things that are going on. um, then we start seeing some significant, and I mean, the extremes are you'll start seeing substance issues, or abusing pharmaceuticals, or narcotics, or then you'll see, or you can see domestic violence, or you'll see, you know, uh, violent kind of outbursts, or maybe excessive force, or maybe the opposite of that, which would be negligent, or just avoiding stuff, or not responding at all, or just so again, it's to the extremes. It's one way or the other. Somebody being overly protective as opposed to overly combative, whether you're at the home setting or your work setting. So it's kind of really important that you kind of get an understanding that you may not always need to talk to somebody when the wheels fall off. You can do maintenance. You can get it off your chest. You can talk to people about, hey, this is what's going on. This is blah blah. And again, find that person or that support that is not there to try to fix the problem. That's we're as first responders and vets, we don't want to be fixed. We want to be given the tools to fix ourselves. So part of that is how we're carrying this load. I just need somebody that can sit there and maybe not blindly, or uh just agreeing with me for the purposes of agreeing to, like, just, I don't even know the word I'm looking for, but just like placate, right? So like if I'm saying something and I'm getting pissed off, I'm like, can you believe you did that? I can't believe this, and this. I don't want somebody just to blindly agree with me and just to be like, I agree with you. Because if what I'm saying is wrong, or maybe I'm reading it wrong because I'm kind of a little bit obscured by what I got going on in my life, that they can be like, hey, well, listen, I don't know if you realize that, but what that person was doing was right. And I think you're taking it a little bit differently, and for whatever reason. So again, but to have that conversation where it's less judgment and more how they can help you kind of process whatever it is that you're going through. And that really doesn't have to be like a professional or a doctor or a clinician, social worker or counselor, whatever. It doesn't have to be that. I mean, it could be as simple as those open lines of communication with people at home and family, and just really being comes down to being present. And when we have that cumulative type exposure to trauma, just day in, day in, day in, day in, day out, day in, day out, night, day, different shift work, all this stuff, we almost kind of get on this uh, autopilot, which Autopilot's a term I use a lot when I'm dealing with somebody post-critical incident, like post-significant event where we're doing a debriefing, and like when you got done being on autopilot and what the gravity of whatever you were dealing with kind of sinks in, where's your head at? Like that's where I try to find. But we can be on autopilot for quite a long time. And so when we're on autopilot, we're not present. And that's really hard. And we can think we think we're present. We're not. We're actually more reactive to the stimulus around us. Like this is happening, so I'm going to do this. Or it, I had a routine on just getting in and out of my car when I was working narcotics. Like I had a very specific routine, and it got to the point where I was doing stuff, and it becomes muscle memory. And again, this line of work, muscle memory is everything for everything. I don't care if you're in the back of a bus and you have a protocol on when you're going to start an IV or what you're going to do first. What are you checking? How you check your vitals? How or at the firehouse when you're coming off the rig? What depending on what you're doing? Am I doing OV? Am I doing ventilation? Am I do I have the irons? Am I immediately going for a rescue? We get into these routines and it becomes muscle memory, and those usually are your prominent workers. So those are the ones that are kind of like, okay, they know what to do. You don't even have to tell them what to do. It's already in play. And that kind of falls back to when we're in super crisis like that, when bullets start flying. And I use me as an example. In the shooting that I was in, one of the shootings I was in, I had, without even recognizing it, pulled my gun out, put my badge on my that was on a chain over my head. I don't even remember that. And again, there's other aspects of that as far as because of the incident, because what was going on, gunfire, whatever. But that that's muscle memory. Like I knew, and again, even to where I keep certain things. When I was working on the job, very rarely did you ever see anything in my right hand. Very rarely. And that's just a condition that I had that if I'm walking around with a bag or something like that, and I did it the other day and I caught myself doing it, where I was walking around, I had two things that were fairly the same weight, like groceries or something, in both hands. And without even thinking, I put both of them in one hand. I'm like, God, the arm's getting tired. And I realized I'm keeping my hand free. And I'm like, and then I was like, why don't I just use both hands? Kind of thing, because we get so used to it. And so that kind of feeds the cumulativeness of it. So there's the cumulative, which is again not good or bad. It's just kind of depicting a condition that we're existing in, that things are happening and there's it's not one thing that's bothering us, but a multitude of things that kind of compiled creates this pretty thick layer of just a bunch of different things. So again, it's not always bad, it's not always good, it's not one or the other, but it's just a process in which we're doing things. Again, to kind of jump back to some of the issues is that we allow these things to fester. And then we go home and then we're a little bit obtuse or we're just, you know, in a constant state of conflict. And I'll ask people that kind of watch this or that I talk to when we're dealing with this from time to time. So have you ever gotten to your house after work and just sat in the driveway or sat in your car and just decompressed just for a little bit? That's a coping mechanism to just be like, all right, let me gather myself because you're not just going to get out. You want that moment of almost like peace, which really it's the opposite of that because you're in the middle of this. Very rarely are you in like this Zen-like state when you're kind of trying to relax and everything like that. But you're just at rather less at peace and more not overstimulated, right? Because you've been in a state of overstimulation and just constant things coming at you all left and right, right? So this time you take a break. So I ask people all the time, do you find yourself doing that? And the good majority of people are like, yeah, I pause before going into work or going mainly it's going home where I hear that. I do hear people, talking about like I take a break before uh, I get into work to kind of gather myself before I'm going into work for whatever reason. But I see it more commonly happening when people are going home, or when they're kind of going back off of work. So what happens is that he or she's going to go home, and they're really not. They'll walk in being like, "All right, I'm good." You're not good. You've just slowed down a little bit, but you're still on fire. You know what I mean? So just because you're not running doesn't mean that everything's everything's better, right? So you're still carrying the weight of everything that you're dealing with. Um, and whatever you're walking into, may it be, you know, an additional component of the death by a thousand cuts or cumulative drama occurring at home, right? Whether it be an issue with family or children or whatever. So you get home and your partner, your spouse, or whatever, they have kind of become accustomed to this process or what the vibe that you're bringing in when you come home or just that essence. And I talk to folks a lot about this when they have like young kids or young children. And I'm like, do you think your kids don't know that sometimes when you come home, they don't talk to mom or they don't talk to dad, like you give them some space? Most people don't realize. They're like, no, 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 they don't realize. I don't think people realize how observant, how attuned children are, uh, and folks and your home environment are to the mood that you bring with you when you're coming into the house, when you come into the apartment or whatever, right? So that creates a different dynamic. So now everybody's a little bit on eggshells because you're walking in the house. And then arguments start occurring or just conflicts or and again I'm not a fan of arguments, but arguments are kind of a litmus test that there's some degree of give a shit still going on, right? What scares me is not so much the argument. I think that's a really good uh, indicator that maybe there's some underlying things that we kind of need to address, but what really concerns me is um, the apathetic response or the lack of response, like autopilot, but for the home side of the house. Like this is just asshole walking through the door. I'm going to do my thing. He or she'll do his thing, and it is what it is. Well, that's starting to create a shitty environment at home, right? So now work's been pretty kind of dumping on you and dumping on you, or you're carrying a lot of stuff. Then you go home to your safer spot, or you're more where you can let your guard down a little bit. And now that's another situation there. So now you're getting hit from both sides, from that place that you feel supposed to feel comfortable in, and the place that at work. And so on a lot of my presentations, I have uh, a light switch drawing, and it said home and work. And I joke people, I ask them all the time. I was like, hey, do you do you have this switch where when you go home you flip it and you're at home, or do you have the switch when you go into work? I'm at work, so I just do the work stuff. And a lot of people are like, yeah, I got it. And I tell them, I said, that's a bullshit. That's a bullshit switch. It's a bullshit switch. It doesn't exist. You don't keep home at home, and you don't keep work at work. They bleed into each other. If you had a shitty day at work or a shitty experience for a long time at work or just where you're working, the conditions, whether it be, and we talked about this in previous episodes about like institutional betrayal or some moral injury that occurred or something like that, that affects what happens when you go home, whether you believe it or not, whether you care to admit it or not. So what do we do? And me and the guys always talk about this, and the other folks that we work with that we interact with that are in this field or in this space of wellness and first responders and veterans. And what's interesting is first, I think we exist at work and at home with this weird understanding because we manipulate ourselves a little bit that we're good until we can't do things the way we used to do them or enjoy things the way we used to do them for to a certain degree. So it kind of builds up over time. But me and the guys and girls that I work with, we all say, you know what, every time I go to a conference or I'm talking to a wellness program or we're doing this, we're always talking about like, hey, these are the things that suck. This is what's horrible. This is what's killing us. This is what's destroying relationships and marriages and families and all that. This is what, and nobody tells you what to do with it. Nobody. So I think you guys have an understanding of what this environment is, or just the cumulative stress. So what do you do? Well, the one thing is you don't have to wait till it gets to the point where you're being addressed either administratively, punitively, or it's causing a more significant rip. Because conflict in a relationship it's not bad until it gets dysfunctional, or it's still, or when it starts affecting day to day. I don't know anybody that's been together for a long time that's like every day's a, 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 a bouquet of flowers, right? It's all rainbows and Skittles and shit. Right? It's not like that. So it's a healthy dynamic to have some conflict so that you're not withholding stuff. But the one big thing is to what's your support? Who can you talk to? And not about the serious things, because you'll find somebody and somebody will find somebody to put you in front of when there's something significant, whether it be a legal issue, whether you got a DUI or there's domestic violence charge or whatever. There's some substance issues, right? I'm talking about find somebody when that's not going on. And there's a tagline on my email that I have. It's uh, and I think Lena Horne, they attribute it to Lena Horne or Lou Holtz, big Notre Dame fan anyway. But it says it's not the load that breaks you down, it's how you carry it. And that speaks directly to that cumulative trauma. That's not unmanageable. We can manage it. So one of the things I suggest to a lot of people is a communicate. And here's where it gets tough, where you talk because people at home tend to see these shifts in personalities with a lot quicker, a lot sooner than folks at work because we do put a pretty good facade up when we're at work. But here's the tough question. Ask, hey, do you see anything different with me when I'm coming home or when I'm at home? Or do you think, are you seeing anything? Now, you're going to ask that question and you're probably going to get an honest answer. It's going to be tempered. They're going to test the waters a little bit. Be like, well, you're kind of not this, as opposed to just outright going, yeah, you've been a dick for about 5 months now. I can't talk to you. I asked you to do something. And again, we have to, as on the spouse side, we have to be cautious not to, oh, the door's been open. I'm just going to, again, it's almost like drinking from a fire hose. I'm just going to dump everything, right? So there's a balance. Like the partners have to understand when, if this is the dynamic where he or she's going to be like, hey, are you seeing anything? And why I say to do that is, hey, do you see anything? Take in the honest feedback. Take in, hey, this person is saying this. Rather than become defensive, which is what we're programmed to do, take a step back and before you're defensive about it, go, okay, why is that happening? Why am I making you feel this way? And you're gonna again, you're gonna be managing, trying not to be defensive. You're gonna be managing all these other things. But if you just humble yourself for a little bit and just be like, okay, I'm gonna take what he or she said on face value. This is what's going on. I could then kind of be like, hey, listen, I'm not seeing it, but I kind of feel like I feel like I'm in a position where I may be doing something a little bit inappropriate or acting a little bit out of whack. So anticipate a tempering your own need to kind of be defensive and allow that communication. So what that it's communication, just talking back and forth and relaying um, at home because you're a team what's going on and being real about it and not being vindictive about it. And this goes for both sides, the spouse and the first responder or vet, that once I say, hey, this is what I see, I don't need to be jumping. I remember last week when you asked me what was wrong and this, so you got to be careful. We're not using that as in the shit bank of just like, this is what I'm gonna use later on. Because once you do that, the likelihood of anybody kind of opening up again, it's going to be out the window because you've challenged that safe dialogue. So we got Dougie, who I'm assuming Raul is over there in the driver's seat.
He's coming. He's cleaning. I literally just got off the stage less than 5 minutes ago. So Raul's collecting cards and being the nice guy, and I ran out and jumped on my computer. So he'll
Awesome.
be here in just so sorry we're late. We're doing a presentation in Nashville or just outside of Nashville, and it got pushed back, and so we're running a little bit late. So we apologize, but
No, I was
we're
just talking about it. We were talking about the cumulative effects of work, and I brought up something that I know you're going to touch on that because I've heard you talk about it and we've talked about it too. But like with all the stressors of work, and then you come home uh, we take this pause or we sit in the car in the driveway and kind of wait. And we think that I was saying that just because we take that pause and we're a little bit softer or quieter doesn't mean we still don't have all our shit going on. So I
Right.
know you have a specific story or kind of like example of what that looks like and how it looks like for the people at home when they think daddy's off, but daddy's head still at work.
Yeah. Yeah. Just I just got done doing this part. So, I tell everybody, um, there's your boy. He's finally here. Um, so what I tell everybody is there's that moment where you come home from work and you pull in the driveway and you pull in the driveway and you sit there and you take that pause and you go, fuck. Now I got to go in there and deal with this shit. That's usually what people are saying to themselves. That's what I did. And as you're saying that, or I would be saying that, I was at my driveway looking at a beautiful home and had beautiful children at home and had just everything that I could ever want or need. And my kids would come running out of the house, running. I couldn't even get out of the car in time. And my boys would be so excited. Daddy's home. Daddy's home. Let's play, Dad. Let's go fishing. Let's go in the boat. Whatever cockamamie plan they had. And I would always look out the window and, roll the window down and be like, no, son, I'm too tired. Go play in your room. So if I sent them to the room, they were safe. I didn't have to worry about them, especially with four sons like I did. They were always up to shenanigans. And then, I would buy myself time. So I would immediately push them away. And then I would sit there and try to catch my breath. And I wasn't, I would tell them I'm too tired and I'd get up with them. It wasn't physical tired. I mean, most people know my background physically. I was always ready and able to go, but the mental strain and stress bringing home to the house was so overbearing that I just didn't have it in me to anything left in the tank to deal with the responsibility of my family and my children. So, that's
Yeah.
the direction I usually head with it.
So I was also kind of discussing um, the cumulative trauma side of it, where all the shit that kind of builds up at work and all the kind of shit that builds up at home. And we talk about this a lot that we go to a lot of conferences and we hear people talking about problems and all the things that are going wrong and how to identify shit that's going wrong and all that good stuff. But nobody ever really comes up with like a solution or
Mhm.
like, well, what do we do when this happens? So
Right.
I one of the things that I brought up was is kind of opening those lines of communication at home and at work too. You do that too at work, but like asking somebody and I'll preface it with this. Like I was saying, if we wait till everything kind of goes sideways when we're in trouble or the fight's blown out, what all that good stuff. But before it gets to that, asking, hey, have you noticed anything different with me? I'm not super all the time with it and stuff like that. That when they do answer, you don't jump down their throat for answering the question that you just asked them. So one of the big things is communication, like talking to somebody, hey, this bothered me, or man, I've had a really rough go because I've had a shitty commander. Some douchebag just got promoted, and he's been in charge of our unit, never been in our unit. Now I got to answer to him, just all that kind of grief. What are some of the things that you guys think would help when somebody's dealing with all that cumulative shit?
It's funny you say that, Chris. Just talking, and I always say, and you already kind of prefaced it, we got to have the conversations now, right? Not when the wheels fall off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell, and everybody knows this, all of our families, all they want to do is help.
Mm-hmm.
All they want to do is help. They just don't know how.
Yeah.
When you come home like a raging asshole, or you come home and you're just isolating, or you come home and you're depressed, or like Doug was saying, um, they just don't know what to do because we haven't had that conversation. We haven't had the conversation of this is what a bad day may look like, and Dad needs this little bit of time. But now we also have to be that person that says mean what we say and say what we mean. So if I come home and I say, "Hey, today was a bad day. I had something to deal with kids. I need 30 minutes just to kind of go through my thing and make it 30 minutes and then come back and be the dad and be the husband and that kind of thing." So uh I think the big thing is that communication. I don't pretend to have the magic, because the way you talk to your wife is in that
Yeah.
conversation may be different than mine for a bunch of different reasons. Number one, their backgrounds, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you have a wife that was in the industry, and so that conversation
Well,
is a
don't say
huge.
it like that because that sounds like porn.
My point is that
The
your
industry.
wife was a cop, so so
That same thing.
so that conversation with her would be a whole lot different than the conversation that Doug has with his wife, that's a school teacher. So I don't pretend to have the magic answer, but the big deal is that the conversation has to be had,
Mhm.
and it's not a one conversation on year one, and I'm good for the next 25 years.
Yeah.
That's not that's gonna evolve over time, I would think.
Yeah.
Well, I know over time that's gonna evolve because the person you are year one, the officer you are year one, the husband you are year one is going to be different than all those in year five, and then different in year 10, and different in year 15. So we have to have that conversation. It's got to be an ongoing thing,
Yeah.
that communication with your spouse, your kids, and your family.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the other thing that I was that I wanted to bring up, and I talked about it earlier, and uh, is with the cumulative trauma. Like I remember first being on the job and just being hyper vigilant, hyper aware of everything, and just my. And I remembered, uh, when was the first time that you went to a scene where you realized where you were again been on the job a little bit longer, a little bit more experience, where you see a younger officer or a newer officer, a newer medic, or a newer firefighter, whatever it is, come in, and they're like, "Oh my goodness," and they're a little bit overwhelmed, but you're completely like, "Yeah, this is normal. I've been doing this forever," and it's that you know what I equated to Saving Private Ryan. Remember the opening scene where you got the guys praying, some guy's scared to death, crying, and Sergeant Horvath is just walking through, putting a dip in his mouth. He's like, "All right, this is what we're gonna do," and just keep it because he had been there and done it. And they showed a great scene. And this goes to the wheelbarrow that I was talking about with what Doug mentions. If you look at the end of that, after the whole thing kind of quiets down, uh, he takes dirt from the beach in Omaha Beach, and puts it in a tin and puts it in a bag with all these other tins that said like Africa, that said, all these different, and that's no different. Those are all those different places and the experience that he has. But I remember being like on a homicide scene where it was chaos. And I remember people just, I'm like, hey, calm down. Because it wasn't overwhelming, because I'd done it 5,000 times. That's, it's normal, but to the average person, that's not normal to be okay with all this on this tactical side of it. Do you remember ever going in and you're like, just you taint like, where am I going? What am I doing? And then after being involved in tactics and doing it for a while, you're not even thinking about it. You're just doing it. That's that's that cumulative, like time and time again. So it's not always bad, but I'm just saying the exposure to that cumulative trauma, you get so used to it. So you guys have any experiences where you kind of it kind of like that used to kind of overwhelm me, but now it's like whatever.
Oh, yeah. I remember one particular call. We pulled up to an apartment complex in the hood. And when we pull up, my buddy in another car had a trainee. And we get out of the car, and it was a big apartment complex, a lot of drug dealing type stuff going down. And when we got out of the car, somebody opened fire on us with an AK, just started unloading, pop, 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 pop. And we all just kind of like tucked behind a car to look where it was coming from. No big deal because we've been shot at so much in the town I worked in. And the trainee was under the car. He crawled under the car. My buddy had to pull him out by his feet. This little dude crawled under a car, and he looked at my buddy and he said, I didn't know they were going to be shooting at us. And he looked at him, and that kid quit on the spot. We
Right,
took him back to PD. He took his stuff off, and we were like, hey, bro, this is, real business. That was the moment where I look back and I'm like, we didn't even flinch.
right.
And and you being on SWAT for 20 years, and like Raul, you just same for you. I mean, you've been in so many shootings, man. Like it's just second nature to you.
I think
It's unfortunate.
I'm over here thinking of two different things. One of when I was maybe a year on, we go to a neighborhood and real bad neighborhood in Orlando. We
The one where you beat up Santa Claus, that
not
neighborhood.
that neighborhood. It's a different story for a different show. We go into this neighborhood and there's three of us going into this neighborhood and they start shooting at us. And I had, just coming out the military and new cop, maybe a year on. And, I remember hitting the deck and just kind of like, holy shit, like this is happening. And while I wasn't freaking like for my life, I was kind of like, what are we gonna do? Because I didn't know where the shots were coming from. I was kind of freaking out, like, where's it coming from? And one of the guys there, never forget him, man. He's like standing up and he's like, what is that?
Fireworks.
Yeah, yeah. He's
Somebody
just
lighting
like,
off fireworks.
what is that? And we can hear the bullets hitting the concrete behind us. And we're like, get down, And he just was, I think it's coming from over there. And he just, kind of going. But then I fast forward, um, just shy of 20 years later, same thing happens. And I'm the guy kind of walking the cover.
Yeah.
And the other guys are kind of doing ah, and I just and it's just that and it's like anything. I equate that to really anything. Um, you do it enough times, you get enough reps at it, it starts to be, I don't want to say second nature, but you just get used to it. I don't know if that's the right way to say it.
Let
I
me
bet.
add to it. It's like raising kids for the listeners who have kids. He- my first son, when he would drop his pacifier, we would put it under hot water and re-sterilize it. The second son, I would put it in my mouth, lick it off, put it back in his mouth. My third kid, I would just wipe it off on my jeans and put it in their mouth. By the fourth and fifth kid, we just leave it on the ground and go, you can't have it no more. It just you build up them scars over time. And on a serious note, I just want to jump back a second when you were talking about coming home from work, because that's a really important topic. I had a female officer ask me, because I talk about transitioning from cop guy to dad, because the kids don't see the uniform, they just see mom and dad. And she asked me, how do I tell my kids that I'm not ready for them? And I said, what I did one time that I remember is when my kids came up to me and wanted me to play and I didn't know what to tell them, I said, hey, I said, do you know when you're at school all day long doing schoolwork, and then soon as you come home, I make you do chores and you're just like, oh, dad, I'm so tired from being at school all day. Can I just play a little bit? I go, that's what it's like for mommy and daddy when they come home from work. Sometimes we just need a few minutes to play or just relax before we have to start doing chores. And my kids understood that,
Mhm.
and I mean, it sounds kind of trivial, but a lot of times when we come home, we're in cop mind. And so
Well, that goes to the
they're
conversation.
just an example of something you can use to let them know that you need some time without without making them feel like they're unimportant or they're less important.
And I think so. This is where I think there's good and bad with cumulative trauma. It's bad if it's left unaddressed, but there's a purpose to it. There's a benefit to it. And so the example I use is the first time I ever went to go buy dope in a house. Um, they just kind of dropped me off with some money, and they're like, "Go buy drugs," and I'm like, oh, "All right." I go in there and just nervous, just obviously nervous, which kind of fit the role because I was buying crack at the time. So kind of go in there and get the dope, and then once I got it, I'm like, mission completed. And I go back there and blah blah blah, and the guy Mark, who was uh my handler at the time, goes, "All right, good job." I was like, because I walked back there a little cocky and a little pride going on, and I was like, "Whatever." He's like, "Take it easy, Serpico. What? Where did you get it from? What house?" And I'm like, there was, I think it was a blue house, maybe, or great. I know the area that he's like, really? He goes, all right, who'd you get it from? I
Mm.
think it was a guy. Again, my tunnel vision was like this.
Oh yeah.
Like, it
Oh
was
yeah.
almost like looking through a keyhole, right? And then I fast forward to the last time I was, and I think I was buying, it might have been guns or fake money or something, whatever it was. I walked into that house. I could tell you who was in the house, who opened the door, how the door opened up, whether it was right to left, outward or inward opening, if there were indicators of a locking mechanism that is put up against the door, who's carrying in that house, what their nicknames were, where all these tactical. I could go in there and with with absolute precision accuracy of what was going on. Where it was just my tunnel vision had gone so wide that it almost felt like I could see behind me, kind of thing. And because it time and time again.
I think
That
is it the same way? Is it the same way, Chris, though, with trauma? And I think it is, and follow where I'm going here. In the beginning of my career, I'm talking about that shooting, that the guy shooting at us. I really can't tell you a whole lot. So the things I heard the bullets hitting the concrete. I didn't know where it was coming from. Where the guy is standing up, like I think it's coming from over there. Like he just was it was just so normal to him where I'm kind of like this, ducking down, like, hold, where, and where, and as we go on through our career and trauma's kind of happening, do we take more of it in because we're more
I
aware,
think
and then more of it sticks?
we become more confident in our skills.
Hmm.
I'll give you a prime example. You probably saw that guy being super calm, and you barely remember what you're doing. I
Hmm.
bet you if you looked at some of your last or later operations
Right.
towards retirement, not only could you tell what you were doing, you could
Oh,
tell what everybody, you'd be like, because somebody like, all right, who hit the door? But you could be like, all right, you did this. I don't know if you realize this, but when you broke into the room, you didn't mirror right because when somebody went left because you immediately engaged or targeted something that was in front. Again, the tunnel vision, and this all goes to that parasympathetic where it's the tunnel vision, auditory exclusion, where you're not hearing everything. That widens. You become
yeah.
more experienced in it. Now, that could be a bad thing that it may put you in a state of complacency, but more often than not, like in what we were doing, it was a tactical advantage. It's
Yeah.
almost like Superman. There was a drop zone, a skydiving place I used to go to. Um, there was a guy named Pierre. He was a frogman. He was old school UDT. He was teams
Yeah.
kind of deal, and he was the master rigger out there. So we were working parachutes, and he put him to fixing, doing everything right. And so we did a fun jump, and we went out there, and I was fairly new at skydiving, and we go out, and again, what skydiving is that adrenaline thing, and going, and I'm flying all over the place. We were trying to do a group kind of formation. He flies out, gets me, brings me back to the formation, goes grabs somebody else, brings them back to the formation, kind of sets us all there. This guy was just a sky god. So we get down because again, I'm so overwhelmed with like, oh, I got to do this. What's our altitude? Where are we going? Like, who do I need to? Oh, I'm trying to focus on how I'm positioning myself to move all this stuff. So we get back down, and he's rigging up my uh, reserve chute, which has to be done by a master rigger and certified somebody. So he's doing that. I'm in his at the time it was like a little trailer on the drop zone, and I'm looking on the wall, and it looked like a bat wing canopy, like a parachute. it was a picture of them jumping. I said, "What's that?" He goes, "That was a T3. It was they called it pterodactyl 3. It was a um, experimental shoot that they were given to the UDT guys and the team guys and all that stuff, right?" And I'm like, "Damn." He goes, I said, "How was it?" And he goes, "Ah, it was shit." He goes, "Nine times out of ten, it just collapsed." And I'm like, "Jesus Christ." I was like, "How many times did you jump it?" He's like, like 100. So think about like all the stress that I'm going through. He's done that like a billion times. And so I said, "So you did like a couple hundred times or 100 times, something like that?" He's like, "Yeah." So you cut away like 90% of the time, which is just insanity to me. Insanity to me. But then again, that kind of shows this is what happens when you're exposed to that stuff and it's cumulative trauma over and over again where it's not as scary. And then it becomes less scary. And then it becomes not even scary and more of just a reaction. Like something happens and then I do that to kind of react to it in that sense. So I think uh their car died or their computer died. But anyway, we're kind of coming up on our time anyway over here. But yeah, so in kind of like a nutshell to kind of recapture everything that we've been kind of talking about. Oh, here we go. Here we go. You good to go?
Yeah, man.
I figured the car died or something like that.
Okay, the computer just died. It just went ahead and just took a doo-doo on us. So anyway, we're here. We're here. We're making it.
No worries. We were coming up on time anyway, so was going to probably start wrapping it up a little bit. But yeah, those like that homeboy that was just, he was a sky god. And,
Right,
but time after time, it just got less scarier. And it just become like, again, the first time you're kicking in through a door, it's not that the fear totally gets away from you. And one of the team guys that I was talking to, like, because back in the day, and this is probably a prime example of this. I said, "Hey man, do you ever get scared?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "But you're like a ninja. You're like an American ninja, right?"
right, right.
Because he goes, "No, I get scared." He goes, "You know what the difference is between me and you, Chris?" I said, "Physique." I said, aside from that, he goes, "No. When you get scared, you shut down.
Right.
When I get scared, I get dangerous. I become more of a weapon because I harness that." And he's like, "But I didn't get there overnight. That's years of deployments, years of um, going kinetic, just going out and doing and I'm not talking about training. I'm talking about live situations where, and you guys know this, the people that, when you're around somebody that's never been in a shooting and a shooting pops off, you you start seeing real people. You
Mhm.
start seeing. There was a guy that froze up on us uh, doing a search warrant, who is probably hands down one of the greatest ground fighters and grapplers I've ever seen. Before it was all famous and popular, and he was like a scary badass dude. Guns start popping off. I'm like, all right, let's figure. It's nerve wracking. It's scary a little bit, but I was like, all right, I don't have time to focus on that. Where is it coming from? How am I going to do that? And it was just weird. So when this guy tells me this, that's just another example of that cumulative exposure can, and those are traumatic events, can can hone your skill, can sharpen that blade a little bit.
Yeah,
The problem is when we go home,
yeah,
when we're no longer doing this job, or we get moved to an administrative assignment, or whatever it is. But the tempo or the deployment tempo changes, or your assignment tempo changes, and you're doing something less kind of high speed, right? Not less important, but just maybe less high speed. That, and we've said this before. Me, you, Doug. I think we operate like if everything's on fire, there's rounds. I think we're operating at a very comfortable level. I'm very comfortable in that environment. Where
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not comfortable is when it's quiet or
yeah,
when it's slow. Like, because I'm ready to be 1,000 miles an hour, and everybody else is moving at less negative 2 miles an hour, right? So that's where it's a problem. You can't, and you talk to team guys, Delta guy, or Army SF guys, and all these, they'll tell you there's a expiration date on how long you can do that before it starts you start declining a little bit.
Hmm.
Again, it's kind of like going out on top. I Let me get to the peak of the game, and then let's start working on how I kind of transition to like what Doug was saying into the dad mode or into the husband mode or into
Yeah.
not that mode. So I think that's where you and especially you guys brought it up. Communication's key. Talking to your kids, and again, uh, you may not be able to talk to your kids the way Doug talks to his kids or Raul or the spouse situation may be a little bit different, but find it. Find
Yeah.
those ways to communicate. And I tell you this wholeheartedly, find a clinician. Find them before you need them.
Yeah.
Talk to them before you need them, right? Because when you need them, it's not impossible, but it's a little bit harder to kind of get you back to the status quo, to get you a little bit to that homeostasis, that stability. So
Hmm.
it's like maintenance. Again, don't wait for the wheels to fall off. Check them every now and again. Hey, is this tire going flat a little bit? Or hey, man, I'm running out of oil. Or change the little things because that's
I
easier.
just think it becomes more and more important as your career goes on because of that cumulative effect. I think what I was trying to get at is I think and you said it, as we go on in our career, we become more aware of all this stuff that's happening around us, as opposed to, the tunnel effect, that we have when we're younger. So I just think we take more in because we train that way, and and the experience happens that way. So everything you said, I think, becomes even more important as the career goes on. So it's important to have that system to deal with the career that we are in over the years. Have a system that kind of starts coping with it as you go, not just wait for the wheels to fall off.
It's I'm sitting here it's almost like the dentist.
Hmm.
Oh
You
yeah.
you go to the dentist every 6 months to make sure your teeth are clean and so that you don't have to suffer the consequences of a cavity or a root canal. Like a common metaphor, I mean, if you think about it, it's the same thing. We will go to the dentist every 6 months to make sure our teeth aren't rotting, but we won't go to the doctor to make sure our brain isn't rotting until it's too late, until there's the cavity in the root canal and of that nature. I only came up with that because Karen went to the dentist the other day.
But so it's interesting, and and I'll wrap it up on this, where Doug Raul and I work. Um, we again working at a facility is, we're helping people that the wheels have fall off, that they've fallen off, which is it's okay. We're there to help you out. But I think what's interesting is, and what I found super helpful is we have this program that's got that 2 week. It's a 2 week program. It's not like that reset or that the rebuild.
Hmm.
So you don't
Tune
need
up.
you
Yeah.
don't need 30 days. You can do the so and I say that not so much as a shameless plug because hey, we do that, but I don't know of anybody else that does that because everybody like, hey, let's go in for 30 days, 45 days, 120, whatever it is. But imagine just taking 2 weeks. I will tell you, if that was available to me
Oh,
years ago, I'd be healthier, 100% more healthier now. Um, but that kind of speaks to it. So when we talk about cumulative, how we combat cumulative trauma affecting us adversely is to start addressing it bit by bit, not waiting till it
right.
overwhelms and hit it
Right.
kind of aspect. So, folks, we're at that time. We'll go around the horn, see what anybody else has got, and where we're going to be and what's going on. So I'll leave it to you guys, and then I'll wrap up.
I would, I was, as Chris was ending that, I was thinking, in my career, and I'm going to use you as an example, Chris, you went to canine school for a minimum of 2 weeks, minimum of 80 hours. It was actually 400 hours, probably 600 hours, right?
Our canine school was 6 months.
6 months. So you went through all that school, but I'm going to drop it back to just a 2 week training. Raul and I, being SWAT guys, we went to many of schools that were 80-hour schools, 2 week school. and we do all that. You even went a step further, being a canine master. You put all those hours in for something that was only going to be needed for a short amount of time in life.
Yeah.
And this is how and I say this with all respect. This is how dumb we are as cops. We can go to a school for 2 weeks that can benefit us for a lifetime,
Yeah.
and we won't do it. But we'll go to SRO school for or something stupid like that. That's not going to benefit us very long. Like in all the schools I went to as a cop, none of them, for so to speak, I still have tactical skills, but I don't use them anymore.
Yeah.
All the things I need now, and I retired at a young age, all the things I need now are here. And then I never did that in my career. So be mindful of that, when it's coming to that. And that is, you're absolutely right, Chris. When I heard about that 2 week program, I went, that is amazing. That is a perfect fit for a lot of first responders. And
Yeah.
it's not like a going to treatment thing. It's a tune up. And listen, the most insane race car on the planet, an F1 Ferrari, needs a tune up after every race. That's
Because
what I tell myself.
well, because we we never idle. We go. We're either stopped or 1,000 miles an hour. Well,
Yeah.
you can't do that to a car without checking on it every now and again.
Yeah.
And Doug's 100% right. And I will tell you. So think about this. I dedicated 6 months of training with my dog. Basically, 6 months for my dog to watch me be a fucking asshole, right? But have I ever taken a couple minutes to kind of, again, back in the day, I wouldn't have taken a day to try to help myself.
Right.
So I think what you said, Doug, is right on point. But yeah,
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. Uh, Want to apologize for being late. I'm not sure if Doug did already. You know, we were out here in Tennessee doing our thing, and actually, anyway, apologize for being late. Yeah, I think you guys kind of hit it on the head. Don't wait till the wheels fall off. Have that conversation, whatever that looks like, with your family, periodically. And get those things in place now that can help you in life. I think what Doug just said in reference to the schools and that stuff, that's great for your police career, but we're talking about your life. Yeah, it's just an overall healthy living, and that's the difference. So anyway, thank you very much.
awesome. And you guys, again, if you need something or you don't know what to do or who to call, don't ever hesitate to reach out to myself, Doug, or Raul. We're kind of out and about for the next couple of weeks, doing a lot of training, doing a lot of teaching. I think in a couple of weeks I'll be in Alaska, uh, uh, trying to link up with some of the folks that Doug and Raul have already met out there. But yeah, I'll be out there for a little bit and some other stuff that we got going on. But we'll see you again here next Wednesday. Same bad time, same bad channel. Thanks, guys.
See, Chris, we love you, man. We
Love you
miss you,
guys.
Chris.
Miss you, man.
See you, man.
Love you.